3 in the morning. Your phone lights up with that notification. It's him. After weeks, months maybe, there's his name on your screen. Your heart races before you even read the message. Hey, how are you? 5 words that seem innocent, but carry a universe of hidden intentions, unresolved memories, and most importantly, a question that freezes you in place. What do I do now? Ignore or reply? In this moment, you're not just deciding about a message. You're standing before a psychological mirror that reflects who you were, who you are now, and who you want to become. Jung would call this an encounter with your own shadow, that part of you that still vibrates with the past while another part has already moved forward. What happens in the next few seconds can change everything, or nothing. But you need to know this before you hit send. 1. The message that changes everything. Or does it? That notification sitting on your screen feels like it carries the weight of the entire relationship. You stare at it, reading it over and over as if the words might rearrange themselves into something clearer. But here's what nobody tells you. The message itself is almost never about what it says. It's about timing, context, and what came before. When someone reaches out after silence, they're not just sending words. They're testing the waters to see if you're still the same person who used to respond immediately, who used to drop everything, who used to make them the center of your world. Jung talked about how we project our inner world onto others. When he sends that text, you're not just reading his words. You're reading your own hopes, fears, and unfinished business. You're seeing what you want to see or what you're afraid to see. The message becomes a mirror, and suddenly you're not sure if you're responding to him or to the version of yourself that still exists in that old dynamic. This is where things get tricky, because your brain wants to believe that this time is different. Maybe he's changed. Maybe he finally realized what he lost. Maybe this is the breakthrough moment you've been waiting for. But let's get real for a second. If this message truly changed everything, you wouldn't be here questioning it. You wouldn't feel that knot in your stomach or that voice in the back of your mind telling you to be careful. When something is genuinely good for you, it doesn't come wrapped in confusion and doubt. It doesn't make you freeze up and wonder what the right move is. It feels clear. It feels aligned. It feels like a yes in your entire body, not just in the part of you that misses what used to be. The truth is, most of these messages don't change anything at all. They're a ripple on the surface of your life, not a wave. They're his way of checking if the door is still open, if you're still available, if he can slide back into your world without having done any real work on himself or the situation. And here's the thing that might sting a little. Sometimes these messages aren't even about you. They're about him feeling lonely, bored, nostalgic, or just wanting to know he still has an effect on you. It's an ego thing. It's a comfort thing. It's rarely about genuine change or growth. So before you start crafting the perfect response in your head, ask yourself what's really happening here. Is this message an actual offer of something new and better? Or is it just an invitation back into the same old pattern with a fresh coat of paint? Because if you're honest with yourself, you probably already know the answer. Your gut knew it the second you saw his name pop up. Everything after that is just your mind trying to rationalize why maybe, just maybe, this time it's different. The message doesn't change everything. Your response to it does. And that response isn't about what you type back. It's about whether you're going to honor the growth you've experienced since he left, or whether you're going to shrink yourself back down to fit into a space that no longer serves you. It's about recognizing that you've moved forward, even if part of you still feels pulled backward. The real question isn't what his message means. It's what your life means without him in it, and whether you're willing to protect that meaning or risk it for someone who couldn't see your value when it mattered most. This moment is yours, not his. The power isn't in his hands just because he decided to reach out. The power is in your hands because you get to decide what happens next. And that decision should be based on who you are now, not who you were when things ended. You've grown. You've healed. You've built a life that doesn't revolve around waiting for him to come back. So when you look at that message again, see it for what it really is. A test of whether you'll choose yourself or choose the familiar comfort of what almost worked, but never quite did. 2. What your gut is really telling you. Your gut reaction to that message happened before your brain even had time to form a thought. Maybe it was excitement, dread, anger, or something messier that you can't quite name. But whatever it was real and it was immediate. That feeling is your inner wisdom speaking. And it's worth paying attention to because it knows things your conscious mind hasn't caught up to yet. Your gut isn't polite. It doesn't care about being nice or giving second chances. It cares about keeping you safe and aligned with your truth. Jung believed in the wisdom of the unconscious, that part of you that processes information on a level deeper than rational thought. When your stomach drops or your chest tightens at seeing his name, that's not random. That's your psyche sending you urgent signals based on everything it remembers about this person and this dynamic. It's pulling from past experiences, patterns you've noticed, promises that were broken, and ways you felt diminished or uncertain. Your gut is basically your internal alarm system, and right now it might be going off for a very good reason. But here's where it gets complicated. Sometimes we confuse anxiety with intuition. Anxiety is that frantic spinning energy that makes you want to control the outcome and predict every possible scenario. Intuition is quieter. It's that steady knowing that doesn't need to justify itself or prove anything. When your gut says this isn't right, it's not panicking. It's just stating a fact. The challenge is learning to tell the difference between the two, especially when your emotions are running high and you're desperate for clarity. Think about what your body is actually doing right now. Are your shoulders tense? Is your breathing shallow? Do you feel heavy or light when you imagine responding to him? Your body doesn't lie. It might not give you a detailed explanation with bullet points and supporting evidence, but it gives you sensations that point toward truth. If the thought of engaging with him again makes you feel tired before you even start, that's information. If it makes you feel like you're bracing for impact, that's information too. Your gut might be telling you that this path leads somewhere you've already been, somewhere that didn't work out the first time. Now, some people will tell you to ignore your gut and give him a chance. They'll say you're being too guarded or that everyone deserves forgiveness. But those people aren't living your life. They didn't experience what you experienced. They don't know the full story of how things unfolded and how you felt in the aftermath. Your gut does. It was there for all of it. It remembers the nights you couldn't sleep, the conversations where you felt unheard, the times you compromised yourself trying to make things work. It remembers the relief you felt when things finally ended, even if that relief was mixed with sadness. What your gut is really telling you is whether this person is safe for your soul. Not safe in a physical sense necessarily, but safe in the sense that they can hold space for who you truly are, without trying to shrink you, change you, or use you for their own comfort. It's asking whether going back into contact with him will nourish you or drain you. It's considering whether his presence in your life adds something valuable, or just reopens wounds that were starting to heal. These aren't small questions, and your gut is working overtime to help you see clearly. Sometimes your gut will surprise you. Maybe you expected to feel angry and instead you feel neutral, like he's just someone you used to know rather than someone who still has power over you. That's actually a great sign. It means you've processed and moved on in a real way. But if your gut is screaming at you to be careful, to protect yourself, to not fall back into old habits, then that's equally important information. Don't override it just because responding feels like the polite or expected thing to do. Here's a simple test. Imagine yourself a month from now, having responded to his message and re-engaged with him in some way. How does that version of you feel? Lighter or heavier? More yourself or less? Empowered or diminished? Your gut knows the answer already. It's trying to show you a glimpse of that future so you can make a choice that honors your well-being, rather than his ego. The gift of intuition is that it sees patterns and predicts outcomes based on past behavior. If someone showed you who they were before, your gut is reminding you to believe them. Trust that feeling. It's not leading you astray. It's leading you toward yourself. If you're ready to understand the deeper psychology behind his behavior and finally stop second-guessing yourself, I've created a free guide based on Jungian principles that will change everything. The link is pinned in the first comment below. 3. The shadow side of just being nice. There's this thing we do, especially when we want to be seen as good people. We convince ourselves that responding is the kind thing to do, the mature thing, the thing that proves we're not bitter or holding grudges. We tell ourselves we're just being nice, but underneath that niceness, there's often something else happening, something Jung would call the shadow. Those parts of ourselves we don't want to look at or admit, and sometimes being nice is actually a way of betraying ourselves while looking virtuous to the outside world. Being nice can be a mask for fear, fear of conflict, fear of being seen as difficult, fear that if you don't respond, you're somehow the bad guy in the story. It's easier to send a polite message back than to sit with the discomfort of silence or the guilt of setting a boundary. But when you act from fear rather than from genuine care or desire, You're not being authentic. You're performing a role that doesn't actually serve anyone, least of all yourself. There's also the shadow side of wanting to be needed. If he's reaching out, maybe it means you still matter to him. Maybe it means you're special or unforgettable or worth coming back to, and that can feel good, especially if you've been questioning your own worth since things ended. But chasing that validation through being nice and available is a trap. It keeps you stuck in a pattern where your value is determined by whether someone else chooses you, rather than whether you choose yourself. You become the cool girl who's always understanding, always open, always willing to give another chance. But at what cost? Being nice can also be a way of avoiding your own anger or hurt. If you respond kindly, you don't have to face how upset you actually are about the way things ended or the silence that came after. You can skip over the messy emotions and jump straight to being the bigger person. But those emotions don't disappear just because you ignore them. They go underground. They become resentment that seeps into other areas of your life. They become a bitterness that you carry around without even realizing it, wondering why you feel so tired and disconnected from yourself. The truth is, you don't owe anyone niceness at the expense of your own clarity. You don't owe him a response just because he decided to reach out. You don't owe him access to your energy, your time, or your emotional space. And you definitely don't owe him the performance of being unbothered when you're actually still processing what happened between you. Real kindness includes kindness to yourself. It includes protecting your peace and honoring your feelings, even when they're complicated or uncomfortable. Jung talked about integrating the shadow, which means acknowledging the parts of yourself that you'd rather not look at. Maybe you're not as forgiving as you want to be. Maybe you're still hurt and that's okay. Maybe you want to ignore him not because you're healed, but because you're protecting yourself. And that's valid too. You don't have to be perfect or spiritually evolved to make the right choice here. You just have to be honest about what you're actually feeling versus what you think you should be feeling. Sometimes the nicest thing you can do is nothing at all. Not responding isn't cruel. It's not immature. It's not proof that you're stuck in the past. Sometimes it's the most honest response there is. It says, I don't have the energy for this right now. I don't know what to say. I'm not ready. I don't trust this. I need more time. I need space. I need to choose myself. All of those are completely legitimate reasons to stay silent, and none of them make you a bad person. The shadow side of being nice is that it often comes from wanting external approval more than internal alignment. You want people to think well of you. You want them to think you're handling everything gracefully. But who are you proving it to, really? And what are you sacrificing to maintain that image? If being nice means swallowing your truth, dimming your boundaries, or pretending you're okay when you're not, then it's not actually nice at all. It's self-abandonment dressed up in polite language. You're allowed to not be nice. You're allowed to prioritize your own well-being over his comfort. You're allowed to be messy, conflicted, unsure, and still choosing to protect yourself. That's not shadow behavior. That's integration. That's you honoring all the parts of yourself, including the ones that are still healing and need more time before they can engage with someone who caused pain. 4. Why silence speaks louder than words. Silence has a presence that most people underestimate. When you don't respond to his message, you're not just doing nothing. You're doing something incredibly powerful. You're refusing to play the game by his rules. You're holding space for yourself rather than rushing to fill the gap with words that might not even be true. You're communicating something essential without having to explain yourself or justify your choice. Silence in this context is a complete sentence. Think about what responding does. It opens a door. It signals availability. It tells him that you're willing to engage, even if you're not sure why he's reaching out or what he wants. But silence keeps the door closed. It maintains the boundary. It says that your energy isn't free for the taking, just because he decided he wants your attention again, and that shift in power dynamics is huge. Jung understood that sometimes the most profound communication happens in the spaces between words. Silence allows for reflection. It creates a container where truth can emerge without being rushed or forced. When you stay silent, you give yourself time to feel what you're really feeling, to think about what you actually want, to consider whether engaging serves your highest good. You're not reacting from impulse or obligation. You're responding from a deeper place of wisdom that needs quiet to be heard. There's also something deeply uncomfortable about silence for the person on the other end. When you don't respond, they have to sit with their own intentions and motivations without the distraction of your reaction. They have to wonder what you're thinking, how you're doing, whether you've moved on, and that uncertainty can reveal a lot. If he reaches out again after your silence, you'll learn something about his persistence or his genuine interest. If he doesn't, you'll learn that his message was probably casual or convenience-based rather than meaningful. People often mistake silence for weakness or avoidance, but it's actually the opposite. It takes incredible strength to resist the urge to explain yourself, defend yourself, or seek closure through conversation. It takes courage to trust that you don't need to say anything to make your position clear. Silence is active, not passive. It's a choice you're making consciously, and that choice has weight. 5. When replying means losing yourself. There's a version of you that exists when you're around him. Maybe you noticed it before, or maybe you're only seeing it clearly now that there's been distance. But that version is smaller, quieter, more accommodating. She says yes when she means no. She laughs at things that aren't funny. She downplays her own needs to make room for his. And the scary part is how easily you can slip back into being her if you're not careful. Replying might seem harmless, but it can be the first step toward losing yourself all over again. Jung talked about the persona, the mask we wear to fit into social situations and relationships. When you're with someone who doesn't truly see you or value your wholeness, you start performing a version of yourself that's more palatable to them. You edit your thoughts, soften your opinions, hide your fullness. And over time, that performance becomes exhausting because you're constantly managing how you show up rather than just being who you are. Think about the last time you were deeply involved with him. How did you feel about yourself? Were you confident and grounded, or were you anxious and second-guessing everything? Did you feel seen and appreciated, or did you feel like you were constantly trying to prove your worth? Those feelings don't just disappear because time has passed. If the underlying dynamic hasn't changed, replying opens the door to recreating those same feelings. Losing yourself doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual. It starts with small compromises that seem reasonable in the moment. You reply to his message, even though your gut said not to. Then you agree to talk on the phone. Then you start making yourself available when he reaches out, rearranging your schedule and your priorities to accommodate him. Before you know it, your life is revolving around him again, and you've forgotten what it felt like to be centered in yourself. There's also the way replying can make you abandon your own needs in favor of his. Maybe you've been working on setting better boundaries, speaking up for yourself, prioritizing your own goals and dreams. But when he shows up again, suddenly all of that feels less important. Suddenly you're back to wondering what he's thinking, what he wants, whether you're doing the right thing. Your focus shifts from internal to external, from yourself to him. Replying can also mean betraying your own standards. Maybe you decided, after things ended, that you wouldn't accept breadcrumbs or casual contact. Maybe you committed to only engaging with people who show up consistently and genuinely. But when he reaches out with a simple message, it's tempting to make exceptions. But lowering your standards doesn't just affect this one interaction. It affects how you see yourself and what you believe you deserve. The version of you that's emerged since he's been gone is stronger, clearer, more aligned with your truth. She knows what she wants and what she won't tolerate. She's built a life that doesn't depend on his validation or presence. She's learned to fill her own cup and find joy in her own company. That version of you is precious and worth protecting. And replying to him, especially if it means compromising your boundaries or your peace, puts her at risk. You have to ask yourself, what am I gaining by responding, and what am I losing? If the answer is that you're gaining a moment of connection or the temporary relief of resolving the tension of an unanswered message, but you're losing your clarity, your boundaries, and your sense of self, then the math doesn't add up. You're trading something valuable for something fleeting. Losing yourself also means losing your ability to trust your own judgment. When you override your gut to respond out of guilt or hope or fear, you're telling yourself that your inner voice doesn't matter as much as external pressures. And over time, that message becomes internalized. You stop trusting yourself. You stop believing that your feelings and intuitions are valid. The truth is, you can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't show up as your full self in any relationship if you've abandoned yourself to be in it. If replying means going back to old patterns where you minimize yourself to make space for him, then it's not worth it. No connection is worth the cost of your own wholeness. 6. The dangerous comfort of old patterns. There's something deeply seductive about the familiar, even when the familiar hurt you. Old patterns feel like home, even if that home was chaotic or unsatisfying. When he reaches out, part of you might feel pulled toward responding simply because it's what you know. You know this person, this dynamic, this dance. And in a world that's constantly changing and unpredictable, there's a strange comfort in returning to something that feels known, even if it's not good for you. Jung wrote about the compulsion to repeat. This tendency we have to recreate the same situations and dynamics over and over again until we finally learn the lesson they're trying to teach us. If you keep finding yourself in relationships where you're undervalued or left guessing or cycling through breakups and makeups, it's not bad luck. It's a pattern. And patterns exist because on some unconscious level they're serving a purpose, usually one related to unresolved wounds or beliefs about what you deserve. When he reaches out and you feel that pull to respond, you're feeling the gravity of the pattern trying to suck you back in. It's familiar. It's comfortable in the way an old worn-out couch is comfortable, even if it's broken and doesn't actually support you properly anymore. Your nervous system recognizes this territory, and there's a part of you that relaxes into it because at least you know what to expect. But here's the thing about old patterns. They don't change just because you want them to. They don't magically transform into something healthier because you've missed each other, or because he's reaching out with what seems like good intentions. Patterns are stubborn. They're wired into your psyche and his, and unless there's been real fundamental work done on both sides to address the root causes of the dynamic, you're just going to end up in the same place you were before. The dangerous part is that going back into an old pattern feels easy. It doesn't require you to stretch or grow or sit with discomfort. You already know the steps to this dance. You know when to push and when to pull, when to be vulnerable and when to protect yourself. You've memorized the rhythm, even if the rhythm is dysfunctional. Old patterns also keep you stuck in the past. When you respond to his message and re-engage with him, you're not creating something new. You're reanimating something that already died. You're trying to breathe life into a dynamic that ran its course and ended for a reason. And in doing that, you're preventing yourself from moving forward into relationships and experiences that could actually offer you growth, joy, and genuine connection. There's a grief in letting go of old patterns, even toxic ones. They've been with you for so long that they feel like part of your identity. Who are you if you're not the person who gives second chances? Who are you if you're not the one who stays and tries to fix things? These questions can feel destabilizing, but they're actually invitations to discover a truer, fuller version of yourself. The comfort of old patterns is a trap disguised as safety. It keeps you circling the same block instead of exploring new streets. It keeps you invested in someone who already showed you they can't meet your needs, instead of making space for someone who can. Breaking a pattern requires courage. It requires you to sit with the discomfort of not knowing what comes next. It requires you to trust that there's something better waiting for you, even if you can't see it yet. It requires you to believe that you're capable of creating a different story, one where you're not constantly cycling through the same painful dynamics. When you choose to not respond to his message, you're not just declining to engage with him. You're declining to engage with the pattern. You're saying, I see you, old familiar dance, and I'm not doing this anymore. I'm choosing differently. I'm choosing myself and my growth over the seductive comfort of repeating what already failed. And that choice, as uncomfortable as it might feel in the moment, is the beginning of freedom. 7. Reading between the lines of his intentions. Words are only a fraction of communication. What he says in that message matters far less than why he's saying it, and what he hopes to get from reaching out. Reading between the lines means paying attention to context, timing, and the energy behind his words, not just the words themselves. It means asking yourself hard questions about what he's really after, and whether his intentions align with anything you actually want or need right now. First, consider the timing. Why is he reaching out now? Did something happen in his life that made him think of you? Is he between relationships and feeling lonely? Did he see something on social media that reminded him you exist? Timing tells you a lot about motivation. If he's reaching out during a time when he's probably struggling or feeling empty, His message is more about filling a void in his own life than about genuine care for you. Look at the content of the message itself. Is it specific or generic? Did he reference something personal to your relationship, or could this message have been sent to anyone? A generic "hey" or "how are you doing" doesn't require much thought or emotional investment. It's low effort. It's testing the waters to see if you'll respond without him having to expose himself or be vulnerable. If he wanted to have a real conversation or make amends or express something genuine, the message would reflect that depth. Pay attention to what's not being said. Is he apologizing for anything? Is he acknowledging the time that's passed or the way things ended? Is he taking responsibility for his part in whatever broke down between you? Or is he just sliding into your space as if nothing happened? As if the silence and distance don't need to be addressed? The absence of accountability is a red flag. It means he either doesn't see the problem, doesn't care about the problem, or is hoping you'll overlook it. Think about patterns of past behavior. Has he done this before? Has he reached out after periods of silence, pulled you back in, and then disappeared again? If so, this message isn't about you. It's about him repeating a cycle where he uses your attention and connection to soothe himself when he's feeling low, and then moves on when something better or easier comes along. People show you who they are over time, and you'd be wise to believe them. Consider what he's asking for without actually asking. Is the message designed to open a conversation where he can gradually work his way back into your life? Is he looking for validation that you still care, or that he still has an effect on you? Is he hoping you'll do the emotional labor of keeping the conversation going so he doesn't have to try very hard? Men who are genuinely interested and respectful will make their intentions clear. They won't leave you guessing. Jung believed that everything we experience is both literal and symbolic. On the literal level, this is just a text message, but symbolically, it represents the entire relationship and dynamic between you. The fact that he's reaching out with minimal effort or clarity is symbolic of how he showed up in the relationship overall. If he was inconsistent then, he's being inconsistent now. If he was unclear about what he wanted then, he's being unclear now. Another thing to consider is whether he's actually changed. Has enough time passed for real growth to occur? Have you seen evidence through mutual friends or social media that he's done any internal work? Or is this the same person reaching out with the same patterns just wrapped in slightly different packaging? Real change takes time, self-awareness, and effort. Also think about what responding would give him versus what it would give you. Would it boost his ego to know you're still reachable? Would it confirm for him that he can come and go as he pleases without consequences? And on your side, would it give you clarity, closure, connection? Or would it just open a door to more confusion and mixed signals? If the equation is unbalanced where he gains more than you do, that's a sign that his intentions aren't aligned with your well-being. Reading between the lines also means trusting what you know about him, not what you hope he's become. Hope can cloud judgment. It can make you see intentions that aren't there, or overlook red flags because you want things to be different this time. But hope without evidence is just fantasy. Ground yourself in reality. Look at his actions, his history, his patterns. Ultimately, his intentions don't even matter as much as your own. What do you intend to do with your life, your energy, your heart? Do his intentions align with that, or do they pull you off course? You can't control why he's reaching out or what he wants, but you can control whether you engage, and that control is everything. 8. Your answer defines your future, not his. This moment, right here with that message waiting for a response, is a crossroads. It might not feel like it because it seems so small. Just a text message, just a decision about whether to type a few words back. But small moments have a way of rippling out into bigger consequences, shaping the direction of your life in ways you don't fully see until later. Your answer, or your choice not to answer, is defining something important about your future. And the critical thing to understand is that it's your choice, not his. That holds the power here. He reached out, but you get to decide what that means and where it leads. He doesn't get to dictate your response or your feelings or your next move. The decision is yours, and in making it, you're telling the universe and yourself what you're available for, what you'll tolerate, what you value, and who you're becoming. That's incredibly empowering because you're not a passenger in this story. You're the one writing it. If you respond out of obligation, fear, or the hope that this time will be different, you're setting a precedent. You're saying that your boundaries are flexible, that your peace is negotiable, that access to you is easy even for people who didn't treat you well. The patterns you allow will continue to show up in your life because you've signaled that they're acceptable. Your future becomes a reflection of what you're willing to accept right now. in this moment with this choice. But if you choose silence, if you choose to honor your intuition and protect your energy, you're setting a different precedent. You're saying that you're not available for half-hearted attempts at connection. You're saying that your time and attention are valuable and not everyone gets access to them. And that message reverberates through your life in ways that attract better circumstances, healthier people, and more aligned opportunities. Jung talked about individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are rather than who others expect you to be. Every time you make a choice that honors your authentic self, you move closer to that wholeness. This message from him is an invitation to choose. Will you choose him in the past? Or will you choose yourself in the future? Silence is a choice. Responding is a choice. And both have consequences. Think about who you want to be a year from now. Do you want to be the woman who stood firm in her boundaries and trusted her intuition? Or do you want to be the woman who second-guessed herself, gave into old patterns, and ended up right back where she started? The version of yourself you're creating starts with decisions like this one. Small decisions that accumulate over time to form the shape of your life. Your answer also sets the tone for how he sees you. If you respond immediately, you're communicating that you're still available, still willing to engage despite the history between you. But if you don't respond at all, you're communicating clearly that the door is closed, that you've moved on, that he no longer has the access he once did. Clarity, even when delivered through silence, is a gift to both of you. There's also something important about taking responsibility for your own happiness. Maybe you've been waiting for him to do something, say something, be something that would make everything okay. But that's putting your power in his hands. By choosing how to respond or not respond to his message, you're reclaiming that authorship. You're saying that your happiness, your peace, your future are not dependent on what he does or doesn't do. Jung believed that we meet ourselves again and again in different forms until we learn what we need to learn. This message from him might be one of those meetings. It's an opportunity to do things differently than you've done them before. It's a chance to break the cycle, to honor your growth, to choose the path that leads to more wholeness. Your gut has been telling you since the moment you saw his name on your screen. Your answer defines your future because it defines who you are. Are you someone who honors her boundaries or someone who abandons them when tested? Are you someone who trusts her intuition or someone who overrides it to avoid conflict? Are you someone who believes she deserves genuine love and respect or someone who settles for whatever attention comes her way? These questions are answered through your actions, through choices exactly like this one. So when you look at that message one more time, don't ask yourself what he wants. Ask yourself what you want. Ask yourself what future you're trying to create. Ask yourself who you want to be and what choices will get you there. Your answer should come from that place of self-knowledge and self-love. Because your future isn't defined by whether he reaches out. It's defined by how you respond to yourself in moments like these, when you have to choose between the familiar past and the unknown future.